You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. You wanted it, you got it. A radio program that helps teach you options trading inside and out, basic to complex. This is Options Bootcamp. Whether you want to learn how to protect your portfolio, generate income, or even become a master of volatility, the Options Bootcamp drill instructors will break it all down for you. Now, let's get you into peak options trading shape. Here are your Options Bootcamp drill instructors.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back live once again on Education Wednesday for a dose in your ear holes of the premier options educational program. Yes, it is time once again for Options Bootcamp. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever scintillating, ever compelling network upon which so many of you are just chugging it down these days. Hey, welcome. Continue to drive up our bandwidth bills. That's what it's there for at the end of the day. If you do like what you hear, and maybe you want to pay us back for all of those bandwidth bills, then maybe throw a few stars our way, or a like, or whatever your platform lets you do. Just like this week, we've got our 5-star review from Megan. She says, like it, and would like more YouTube content. Well, I'm with you there, Megan. A lot of our YouTube content is pulled from the network and from our network distributor on the radio side and distributed automatically. So it's great. You guys can get all of our shows there, fresh and tasty on YouTube if you prefer. If that's your platform, your vector of choice, it's all there for you. They put a nice, fun image up there so you can really listen to it while you're watching. But maybe we'll play around with some more YouTube content just for our buddy Megan. Of course, if you want more content in your lives, you want to go above and beyond, get exclusive pro Q&As, had some awesome ones recently, as well as Options Oddities at the end of the week. You want to join us live for this show, everything else we do here on the network, and of course, you want to get your name in the hat for awesome giveaways. Only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more, as we now turn to see who is joining us on the old Options Bootcamp program today. Surprise, surprise. It can be none other than our collective buddy, Mr. Dan Passarelli from Market Taker Mentoring. Mr. P, welcome back to Options Bootcamp, sir. How you doing over there?
I'm doing great, Mark, and glad to be back, and very, very excited about the show today.
I'm glad you are excited. I know you were a little bit low-key before the show. I was hoping to get you fired up, so I got something that I think will excite you. You think you can handle it, sir? You ready? You ready for a little fun kickoff to the show, sir?
That sounds wonderful.
All right, here we go. Because you've done such a banger job in the past, Dan, and because I know our listeners on the show like it, we're going to give away another pro trading crate here on the old Options Bootcamp program to one of our pro members. So, Dan, the wheel is spinning. The random number generator is spinning. Whenever the mood strikes you, sir, tell me to stop it, and we will announce the winner of this month's pro trading crate. So have at it, sir. The floor is yours.
All right, here we go. No whammies, no whammies. Stop.
Oh, you hit a whammy. I'm sorry. You got to go again. No, I'm just kidding. No pressure luck. They'll probably sue us. Why does everybody love that show? It's so funny because it's such a kind of weirdly esoteric show. Yeah, everybody knows the no whammies. It's so funny. It wasn't like it was a Price is Right, one of these big shows, Wheel of Fortune, yet everybody knows the no whammies, right? It's so funny. long way around to saying, okay, Dan, you stopped it on... Oh, that is Meats. Says Mr. Meats with a Z. Oh, yes. Congratulations, Mr. Meats with a Z. I love that we have some of our long timers winning second in multiple pro trading. That's awesome. That means you hang out in the pro. Good things happen to you, including Mr. Meats. Congratulations. I've been seeing you there in a lot of our pro Q&As lately again. So it's good to see you out there. Good to see you active, and good to see you winning another pro trading crate. Our producers know your deal by now. They'll reach out to you. And because you've won one before, we're gonna gin yours up, make it even crazier. So look forward to that. Of course, if you want to play along, listeners, you want to get your name in the hat for the August pro trading crate. There's only one place to go. They are available nowhere else but theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That's the place to go. You sign up for the pro, you're automatically entered. You don't have to do anything else. And then all the fun can be yours, including the fun of this episode. It's time for a little bit of the old mail call.
Mail call. Time to look at questions submitted by our listeners.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the mail call, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments, your insights, your pearls of wisdom. Dan, we've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks. Folks still got shows on the on-demand side, but of course we weren't doing any new live shows. Now we're back. We're live. You're back from your sojourns across the country. You're rearing to go. What do you have in store for us this week with your MTM question of the week?
Yes, the question of the week. So I was actually literally just before we got on reading something about my short squeeze scanner options rater. And they asked if every one of the signals results in a short squeeze. And I just kind of want to be really clear about it. So the way options rater works is basically as soon as certain criteria are met, basically when a lot of retail traders are buying up call options, which can result in kind of creating a short squeeze in and of itself, we get a signal, and not all of the signals result in short squeezes, but every short squeeze that happens would have been a signal, if that makes sense. So basically any short squeeze that happens, we know about it as it's just beginning. So yeah, that's the question that I got. That's the answer. And, for those of you who do watch short squeezes, like these things really, really do get predicted live real time, as they're just starting out. And, our short squeeze finder just makes it easier. I'm not trying to necessarily plug that or anything, but just to kind of help you understand how short squeezes works, like you can literally see these things being like coming into fruition just as they're happening.
There you go, listeners. As we keep on rolling, let's pay off some of your thoughts on our questions of the week. Let's go back to the one we had on our last episode 2 weeks ago. First, we had a couple of them. We'll get to the other one in a second, but we'll get to one of them we had where we asked you, quite simply, we've seen a lot of interesting options paper lately. We can't decide which ones we like the most or least, so we'll let you folks decide. Gun to your head, which would you rather buy? Gave you three choices. The NKLA AUG5 calls for 37 cents. NKLA at the time, I believe, was at $2.50 around that point. And it's taken a bit of a hit since then. It's down to $1.98 today, off another 10.5% or about 23 cents today. The RIVN AUG 40s for 40 cents. I believe at the time, RIVN was around mid-20s, somewhere around 23 to 25. It's at $23 right now, selling off 7%. So they had a revenue beat on their earnings, but market not liking what they're hearing nonetheless. So RIVN back down. And then the one that I thought would be the runaway winner with it turns out it was not, even though it was in real life. These were the Keurig Dr. Pepper October 33s for 55 cents. 54.3% of you ended up choosing the RIVN AUG 40s. Obviously, there's still time for all of these, but they're not looking great. And then 28.3% chose these, the KDP AUG 33s for 55 cents. The stock's at $33.84 right now, and it got as high as about $34.50 right away. So These were a winner almost instantaneously. These we talked about on our Options Oddity show. I liked those as well. We missed them because we were putting in orders, and the market closes at the end of that show, unfortunately. So we miss a lot of things as we're getting into discussing things on that show. So we missed them, and then, of course, they ran away. So good stuff here. And you folks loving the RIVN. There's still time for those. I don't think RIVN's going to double by AUG expiration, but we have seen crazier things. And the NKLA calls, they all look like kind of wasted money at this point. We also asked you last week, VXX had a rocky year in 2022. Are you trading it again, or have you moved on? We said, yes, I never stopped, or yes, they lured me back, or no, I don't trust it, or no, I trade other products. And that ended up taking it. 41.9% said, no, I don't trade it anymore. I trade other products. And then 22.6% said, and no, I don't trust it. So obviously adding those two together, you're talking nearly 65%, nearly 2/3 of the audience saying they've just moved on from VXX. If you have no idea what I'm talking about with that product, listeners, check out our Volatility View show, or check out the episode we did here not too long ago talking about volatility products. VXX is in there. But interesting stuff. We kind of talk about some of the controversy with that product there. We also say, yes, they lured me back 19.4%, and yes, I never stopped, which should be the lowest, and it is at 16.1%. So VXX sounds like still has some work to do gaining back a lot of your trust. And the volume bears it out. Also, these comments like trades saying VXX and other instruments like it are scams meant to lure in uneducated retail traders. Well, there certainly is some to that, I suppose. You have to know what you're getting into at the end of the day if you're going to trade VXX. Which gets us to our question of the week this week, Dan. An intriguing one, kind of goes along the lines of what you're talking about with your short scanners there. Our question right now, you can find it at Options on Twitter/X, listeners, is we've seen a resurgence of volume in AMC, GameStop, SoFi, Mara, and other popular names from the 2021 meme stock frenzy, which raises the question, is the meme stock frenzy back? Very simple, yes or no, Dan. So first off, what are you voting for? And then B, what do you think our audience is voting for?
Well, I wouldn't say it's very simple. Short squeezes are definitely back. We've had a couple great ones happen recently, but I don't know if I would really define it as the meme stock frenzy, which we were able to before. Now I think it's just regular short squeeze trading. It's kind of more pure and classic, just the same type of short squeezes that, you could have made 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. And not quite like that little niche meme stock thing that happened a couple years ago.
So for the purposes of our poll, you're voting no then? We don't have a separate short squeeze category. You got to go yes or no.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yes, but I would name it something different.
Okay. Yes, with the caveat. Frenzy. Which way do you think our audience is going?
I'm thinking that it's probably split pretty well, but I bet the yeses are in control.
It is pretty split. In fact, it was 50-50 coming into today. That shows our split our audience is. Right now, the no's are taking it 54.5%. 45.5% for yes. So a lot of back and forth. You still got time, listeners. If you're listening on demand, as I know most of you are, then you got about a day or two left. Get over there at Options. You should be able to find it. Just scroll down a little bit if it's not pinned. And you too can play along in our question of the week, which gets us, speaking of names that are 2021 meme stock friendly. Our question a couple of weeks ago when we were on the show, Dan, was there are many ways for options traders to get crypto exposure in their securities accounts. We gave you Mara, Riot, Coinbase, and BITO, all popular choices. Which one is your favorite? And 35.2% of you chose Mara, which is interesting. Again, kind of one of our meme stock, quote unquote, resurgent names right now. But also on there was BITO, and it led to this comment on our last episode from Blue Lobster. He said, owning calls on BITO for over a month is a seriously bad idea. It's been paying a huge dividend lately. You can scalp for a week or two, but be aware. Which then snowballed into us discussing it on the show, which led to this question this week from Cup of Coffee. Cup of Coffee wants to, I like that. Are you Cuppy Coffee from all the various races there at the United Center between Bulls games? I always vote for you if that's the case. I always cheer for Cuppy Coffee versus the donuts and whatever the other one is. But a Cup of Coffee wants to know, I found the episode about the BITO dividend to be very interesting. Is it worth trying to capture that div you think? Well, thanks. First off, the whole episode wasn't about that. We did touch on it, though. It became an interesting conversation topic. And I guess it's up to you whether it's worth capturing. I did some legwork for you ahead of the show. In fact, I put my own money to work just to kind of exemplify this for you listeners. No paper trading for me. BITO, when we were looking at it on the show last, was right around $15.50. They were coming up on their next dividend. And so I thought, let's put some of this capital to work. There are many ways you can capture dividends, listeners. One of the ways is, of course, to own the underlying. That's pretty basic. And then, of course, you can overwrite calls and do other things against it because you don't really want to own the underlying. You just want to have it during that dividend period there. So at the time, the stock was $15.50. I picked up around 500 shares. The outlay was like $7,700. Then I ended up coming against it. Now, this was a part that's a little dicey because vol, if you've been listening to our crypto rundown show, you know vol is pretty anemic out there. So you're not getting a ton of juice for those. I sold the 2-week at the money, so 15 half-strike calls for 25 cents. Sold the 5 locks. I had 500 shares. So that's another 125, effectively selling the underlying at a price of $15.75 if it does rally. So you're not getting a ton of juice, but you're getting a decent amount. The reason I went out 2 weeks, listeners, is because the dividend was not going to be payable in the coming week. It was going to be actually out 2 weeks, the 8th. So it was paid yesterday. So you had to go out far enough. You know how dividends work, listeners out there at the end of the day. And then I looked at the account yesterday, and sure enough, they paid 38.5 cents essentially. So that worked out to about $192.50 in cash that I collected in dividend, which is not bad for a holding period of coming in up on 2 weeks now. If you add in the income I got from harvesting the calls, which BITO was still around that 15.5 level, it was $317.50 total in income. So put that against the outlay. You're talking about a 4% return for roughly 2 weeks. Not bad. Not bad at all. So the pros are obvious, pretty decent income. The downside to that, I forgot who asked that question. That was a cup of coffee. The downside cup of coffee is obviously you're holding BITO during that period, so there is some underlying risk. Even though right now it is a fairly low volatility. In fact, I just saw a headline. We had the folks from Deribit on our crypto show not too long ago. They have a new Bitcoin vol measure that hit the lowest it ever has in the lifespan of that product, which isn't that long, but still. Bitcoin vol pretty anemic. So your whipsaw potential a little bit lower now than probably has been in the past. So maybe some of that underlying risk a little bit muted. And then also the dividend is not reliable. Let me just run through this really quickly. If you go back, this last dividend, 38.5 cents. Before that, in July, 66.5 cents. That was the juiciest it got. In June, it was 42.7 cents. May, 41.7 cents. April, 46.5 cents. And then it drops off a cliff back in March to about 10 cents and about 15 cents in February. Now, why did it change? Well, this dividend, remember, you're talking an ETF. This is a structure designed to roll these futures at CME. It's not designed to really hold profits from rolling these futures, which you do get if the underlying is shooting up aggressively, which it was at the end of Q2 into Q3. So if you have an aggressive upward move in these futures, this entity, the LLC, whatever it is that holds these ETFs, it cannot hold these profits. It has to distribute them back to the shareholders, hence these dividends, which is why this dividend is so variable. It is not reliable. It is all dependent on the term structure and the roll that they're collecting from these futures at the end of the day and the movement in the underlying. So in this period, yeah, it was a pretty good do, as they used to say, a little over 4%. In fact, looking at the NASDAQ history here, the dividend history for BITO going back a full year, the annual dividend is about $4.62. So that's nearly a 30% dividend yield. So over the past year, it has been aggressive. A lot of that coming in the last few months because we had that aggressive run-up, obviously. So that's not reliable, but it is something. And there's also a real-world application for how you could go about harvesting that if you were so inclined. All right, Dan, that's a lot of setup there for all things BITO. But you recall we were talking about this dividend a few weeks ago. You said you're going to look into a little bit more. Have you done any more research? And what are your thoughts for, as Cup of Coffee wants to know, is it worth trying to capture the dividend in BITO, sir? And is it reliable?
Yeah. And I did do some digging around here. And is it worth capturing? Yeah. If you're trading BITO, you better capture that dividend, because if you don't, you're at a humongous disadvantage. Like Mark touched on, like the way that ETF is set up, and hey man, if you're going to trade anything, you really need to read the prospectus. And I know a lot of people don't do that, but with funds like this, you kind of have to really understand it. They have to distribute that cash. And so what I did is I pulled up a chart of Bitcoin, and I pulled up a chart of BITO, and I saw how much each of them appreciated in value from, I guess it was the beginning of the year. And just the BITO share price massively underperformed the Bitcoin pure crypto. But when you add in the dividends, they were exactly the same. So it's the dividends is part of the value there. It's built in there. And if you're not capturing the dividends, oh my gosh, you're just doing a terrible job mimicking Bitcoin. So if you buy and hold this thing, if you would have bought and hold from the beginning of the year, the BITO ETF, and collected the dividends, then it would have been pretty comparable to owning pure Bitcoin. But if you're trading in and out and sometimes getting the dividend, sometimes not, and you can really screw that up pretty good. So that's the answer. And it really comes down to, with all these ETFs, and classic examples are like how VXX works with VIX futures, how USO works. That was a catastrophe back during the pandemic when oil traded negative. If you don't read these prospectuses, you can run into a whole bunch of trouble and really trade them terribly.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we have looked into the tracking, and I was actually kind of surprised at how well BITO tracked. I initially assumed that the roll yield was going to kill this thing like it does with VXX and others. Turns out the term structure of the Bitcoin futures, the types of trades that go up there, a little bit different than what we see in the vol space, so it doesn't get killed as much with the roll, but you do need to include that dividend at the end of the day into the return. Otherwise, you will be underperforming. So intriguing stuff out there. Of course, if the underlying does drop, looks like it's a little bit below 15.5 right now, so I could always come back, buy those calls again and write them again next week. Keep that train going. You could wheel. There's a lot of things you could do if you don't want to hold the underlying. You can obviously just sell it too. I could have sold it yesterday for 15.5 and pretty much just taken the dividend. There's a lot of things you can do if you don't want to have that underlying risk there, cup of coffee. But it is an intriguing dividend. It's pretty juicy. Just make sure you know what you're getting into ahead of time out there. As we keep on rolling, let's go out to Theta Noob. He gets the award for a handle of the week. I like it. Theta Noob says, someone asked him about learning about options. He said, I believe you should pay for value-added services, stuff like Dan and everyone else is out there doing the quality mentorship. He said, that being said, these are the invaluable free resources that help me. And he listed a bunch of them. And the number one resource that he listed, Dan, is us. He says, the people at the Options Insider have been doing this for over 1,000 years. He's close. Not quite that long, but pretty darn close. They're like wizards at options. Jokes aside, with about 20 years of archived podcasts, the Options Bootcamp will be the most valuable 30 to 60 minutes you spend a week to help with your trading. So there you go, Dan. I don't know if we've been doing it for 1,000 years or even 20. The network as a whole, listeners, is about 16 plus years old, and then boot camp is around the decade or so. So we're not quite there yet, Dan, but give us another 900 or so years and we'll get there.
Just round to the nearest 1,000.
Round to the nearest millennia, and you're good. You're good there. If you round up a millennia, then we're there. But Theta Noob, thank you. All jokes aside, thank you for your love and your recommendation. Yeah, that's these last 1,000 years with Dan. They've just flown by, Dan. Isn't that an old joke somewhere? Isn't like a Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks, like the 1,000-year-old man or something like that? Didn't they do something like that? Well, maybe I'm dating myself with that one. But yes, thank you nonetheless, Theta Noob. Speaking of thanks, we got more thanks coming in, Dan. We got thanks from Shane. He wrote in on our last episode, I believe. He wrote in about if you sell credit spreads, should you just put that credit to work buying the out-of-the-money calls? He wanted to effectively know if he should just leg into or just at the outset buy bullish risk reversals. And we kind of walked him through why maybe he doesn't want to do that unless that's his goal from the outset. But you don't want to just have a credit and say, oh, I got a credit. Let me just burn in a hole in my pocket. Let me just put it to work buying something willy-nilly. You don't want to do that. He responded, he said, I like he gets a good handle too. Sergeant Kevlar. I like that too. He says, thanks for taking my question. I feel a lot less stupid now. Well, you should not feel stupid. Shane/Sergeant Kevlar, anyone who takes the time to write in. They always say it's a cliche, but there truly really are no stupid questions. Unless you ask why Dan is a handsomer fellow than me. That would be a stupid question because it's patently not true. But outside of those types of stupid, there really are no stupid questions. So Shane, thanks for writing in. These are the types of scenarios everyone encounters when they're first learning about options. So if you want to share it with your fellow listeners here on the old boot camp, then you can help somebody else too. I guarantee you somebody else has that same question, Shane. So good job writing in, and you should not feel less stupid. You shouldn't feel stupid at all. These are all very normal and understandable questions. All right, let's go out here. Got some fun handles today. Let's go to Dumb Meatball. Dumb Meatball says, yo. Well, yo back. Now, this one's for you, Dan. He says, is Dan feeling this rally or is he fading it and buying puts? I believe he sent it in a couple of weeks ago when we were last live, Dan. We were kind of rallying harder then than we are now. A little bit of a sell-off on the screens out there today and some sell-off yesterday with all these Chinese news. But that said, we have been mostly green this year, Dan. So the Meatball wants to know, are you feeling this rally or are you fading it and buying puts?
Yeah, I mean, I've been feeling the rally. They say traders have short memories, and there's something to that. Like, you kind of have to, because if you just fight the tape, you're not going to win at this game. So when it starts rallying and you feel the mood change, and especially key off some of the really key thought leaders, like Morgan Stanley was pretty bearish for a while, and then they're like, yeah, I'm not quite so bearish, and Goldman, who was reasonably bullish the whole time, got even more bullish. And when these things happen, you can't just be like, oh no, I'm going to stay a perma bear, which I never was a bear necessarily. I just questioned some of the rally. And so I did and have been a lot more open to the potential for things to head higher. Now, we pulled back just a bit, but I don't see that necessarily as a new regime by any stretch of the imagination. In all likelihood, it might end up being a bit of a dip. And we have had some earnings decline this time around, but earnings decline doesn't mean companies are losing money. It just means they're making money at a slower rate. So, things end up justifying the actions that have taken place. So I'm going to stick in there with a short-term memory, and I'm going to not fight the tape. I'm going to trade what I see. And I'm not buying puts with both hands by any stretch of the imagination.
Buying puts with both hands and both feet. Listen, that's what he's saying there. So get in on all that put action. All right, let's go out here to this one from John. John Ellis wants to know, this is something you and I have kind of discussed a bit in the past, Dan, and debated. He says, how do you decide whether to just sell a put versus buying a ratio put spread? So obviously selling the put, pretty straightforward. Listeners, usually selling an out of the money put. Maybe you're doing it cash secured. And then the ratio put spread, I'm assuming he means buying one and then selling more farther out of the money puts against it. You can do 1x2, 1x3. The ratios are infinite, as is the risk the more you sell. So intriguing stuff. I've talked about this before, but Dan, you kind of view these not as the same type of trade where a lot of other people do. So you take a different viewpoint. What do you have to say for John here? He's trying to debate whether to sell a put versus the old, let's say, 1x2 put spread, sir.
Yeah, so one of the most helpful things that I think a trader can do is to model it out. Go to, if you're using Thinkorswim, for example, go to that Analyze tab, click on the bid so that you're selling it, go to the risk profile and look at what that profit and loss diagram looks like for both of them and see which one best matches your thoughts on the market, your thesis, and trade the one that fits the best. And that can help you really consider what the risk reward is, what your objective is. Are you selling, for me, when I sell puts, my main motivation typically is to get assigned. Like I want to get assigned. Whereas with a ratio put spread, it's pretty much that's never the case. So model it out, man. Model it out. See which one makes the most sense for that opportunity. That's why there are all these different spreads, because each one is for a specific opportunity. Do what fits your thesis best.
All right, and then we'll roll out of here. We were talking about the Pro Trading Crate at the start of the show. We got some Pro Trading Crate love from one of our pro members. This is Pariah Pants. He sent in a photo on Twitter. And he said, I had a Pro Trading umbrage crate sitting on my porch when I got home today. Thank you. He says umbrage because one of our cohorts, the Rock Lops, he gets very mad that he doesn't get a Pro Trading Crate. He takes umbrage at it, whereas all of our pro members do. So our pro members like to tweak him and say, look, I got my crate. So he sent a picture of it. He's got a whole bunch of cool stuff in it. He's got educational books, a cool multi-tool I can see in there, and a bunch of other stuff. So you can check that out on our Twitter if you want to see that, listeners. And then one of our other pro members responded, said, I suggest keeping, this is Age of Delaquarius, I suggest keeping the multi-tool away from your computer in case the trade goes the wrong way. It could be a dangerous instrument to have here. I agree. That is a cool an options-themed multi-tool. If you believe, we have all kinds of crazy stuff like that in our vault, listeners, we've collected over the years. And we send it out to you folks because we like you folks out there. So, Dan, are you like some of my other co-hosts? Do you take umbrage at the fact that I don't send you Pro Trading Crates as well? I only send them to the pro folks, sir?
Oh, no. I'm okay with it, Mark. One thing about, having a business and having tchotchkes and stuff to give away is that I've got a whole lot of market taker stuff laying around the house. So maybe I'll ship some off to Mark that he can put in one of his pro trading kits.
There you go. Look for MTM things to be added to the Pro Trading Crate soon. Because you're right, it's not Options Insider gear. We send out a cool exclusive shirt, but everything else is gear from throughout the business, listeners. And it's some of it's pretty rare. I've sent some stuff out. I'm like, wow, look at this. We're sending this out to somebody. We could probably sell this on the old Evil Bay for some money. But alas, we give it to you folks out there. Let's get one more in here really quick. Let's go to this. We have the listener comment on iTunes or whatever it was saying they wanted more YouTube content. This is a comment from YouTube. This comes from Maker. Maker says, thanks for uploading this show. It'll be more better if timestamps can be provided. That's a cool idea, Maker, to put timestamps within the episode. The problem is we put it all out. It's all done automatically through our network distributor. So this show, everything else we do on our network, once we post it, it goes out to all of our platforms, obviously your iTunes and everywhere else, and also repurposed and put up to YouTube. And I don't know if that service has the ability to add chapters within it, but that's not a bad idea. We can investigate. It might involve us having to manually upload a bunch of stuff and add the timestamps, which would be a lot more time consuming for our staff, quite frankly. Maker, I've already burdened them with a lot of stuff, but it's not a bad idea. Something to mull over. But we're putting out so much. It's not just Options Bootcamp, obviously. It's a whole bunch of shows. So if we're sitting there putting timestamps and everything, that's going to take much longer to edit and put up than we already take to put all these shows up. So it's an idea. I don't know how feasible it is right now. But thank you for listening on YouTube, Maker, and everybody else who's out there consuming our stuff on the old tubes. That's going to do it for us here on Options Bootcamp. It's also going to do it for us today on the network. Kind of a Just the Facts day on the network. I get to rest my voice today. Of course, back again tomorrow, noon central with the old option block, 1 p.m. after that, or actually 1:30 p.m., 1:30 p.m. central for This Week in Futures Options. So check out those if you're intrigued by all the stuff we're talking about here and a whole bunch more. We get into all that fun on those shows as well. But before we go, Dan, if they want more fun in their lives, they want to go hit up all the goodness over there at MTM, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, make your way on over to markettaker.com, 2 T's in a row, and glad to provide any help we can for you. Answer questions, get you enrolled in some of our complimentary classes, and get you started on the right path.
Get started on the right path, Market Taker. Don't forget the second T for Theta over there, markettaker.com, the place to go to begin that journey to the dark side. You know, Dan, one thing we do include in all of our pro trading crates is educational content. So if you got some extra Passarelli books lying around, maybe we could include some of those out there. That would be fun for a lot of our listeners. I know a lot of them want to get with the Greeks, sir.
Yeah, man, we can do that. Of course we can.
We got a bunch of other authors horning their way into our crates, but I'll make some room for Mr. P. So if you want a Mr. P book, listeners, hit us up, let us know. If you win the Pro Trading Crate, of course. So meets if you want one, hit us up. And then we'll see what we can do about getting you all that good stuff. That's it for the good stuff today. Back again tomorrow, like I said, with those shows. Back again on Friday, noon Central for Volatility Views. If you have questions, we talked about VXX a little bit today. If you have questions about that kind of stuff, Vol Views is the place to go check out. That one's been running for over a decade as well. And then, of course, after that, for all you pro folks, with Options Oddities. And then back again next week, all the way through to another Education Wednesday, another episode of Options Bootcamp. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.